So today's video is going to be 5 movie recommendations for succubus-related horror films. First one on the list is none other than VHS, which came out in 2012, and I'm pairing that up with Siren, which came out in 2016, which is basically the full feature-length film off the Amateur Night segment of VHS. So for all intents and purposes, I'm going to be focusing on the VHS segment just because I really do like that one. So let's get started. So Amateur Night begins with 3 guys, 3 friends going out to the town, going bar hopping. They go to this pub with the intentions of meeting girls and having sex with them. And they come across Lily. And Lily is a withdrawn, very reclusive female young woman. And you get a sense that there's something very off with this girl. For example, the way she stares at Clint, her "I like you. I like you." It's just very off-putting, so you already know something terrible is going to happen. What seems like a fun boys' night out takes a turn for the worst. Now, something about the movie that I find interesting is just how they're using basically these glasses that have a spy cam in it, and their intentions are to basically film an amateur porn to then distribute said porn for money, for revenue. Already, you don't like these guys, you don't like their intentions. This is like a great film to show you the horrors of when you go out and socialize with people and how you don't really know anyone's intention or what they're intending on doing. More than that, let's focus on Lily. So Lily is in fact a succubus. There's some pretty brutal scenes within the movie where they try to take advantage of Lily once they get back to the motel and realize that the other girl is passed out, so then they shift their focus onto Lily, and it does not go well for them. Lily's transformation is one of the most interesting iterations of a succubus, I would say. Her bug-eyed look, her forehead splitting, that's a very unique design, I think, in a succubus, and her razor-sharp teeth and her bat-like wings. I think one of the most interesting parts of the movie is when she castrates one of the guys. She just starts feeding on him and then just rips his genitals right off. I was like not expecting that, but that was such a brutal scene. I quite frankly don't feel bad for those guys in a sense, just because they weren't necessarily good people or had good intentions. So, I mean, I'm not justifying murder or killing anyone. I mean, again, this is a movie, but they had it coming in a sense. Oh, let me take a quick drink. I personally love VHS. This is by far my favorite segment of all of the VHS segments. But I would say that Ratma, which I know there's mixed reviews with VHS 94, but that one is a really good one. I don't know why, I just love the creature design of that one. So those two are pretty high up there. I don't like some of the effects of the first movie, but I feel like Amateur Night was one of those stories that really creeped me out, and I thought it was so effective. So if you haven't seen VHS or Siren, I would suggest to check those out. But I personally do enjoy VHS a bit more. So next on the list, we have another horror anthology. So this one is Kwaidan, which came out in 1964. And then it follows up with The Snow Woman, which came out in 1968. So this one might not be what you're expecting, or there might be some people who disagree with placing The Snow Woman on a succubus list. But for all intents and purposes, I do think she possesses succubus-like traits. She is a supernatural entity that kills people. She preys on weak-willed men. She's able to shapeshift and be cunning and lure these men and deceive them. So I personally do think she does belong on this list. I don't quite know what else to call her other than a supernatural entity or a ghost, but she does possess succubus-like traits. But I'm going to be focusing on The Snow Woman, which came out in 1968, just because I do like this version a lot more because it expands on the short story. So the movie follows a master sculptor and his apprentice as they set out in the night when a huge snowstorm is taking place. They take refuge, and then that's when they encounter the Snow Woman. The Snow Woman kills the elderly man, but she takes pity on the young boy, and thus has him promise her not to ever reveal meeting her or seeing her to anyone or she would kill him. I personally love this movie. I love Japanese folklore. I love the story of the Yuki-Onna, and I love this iteration or iterations of the Yuki-Onna. I think visually this movie is so appealing. Storyline is well done, well executed. The scenery is just so flat out beautiful, and I love this. By far, I don't think it's really scary. It's more haunting and sad than anything. Especially the ending is really sad. God, I need more coffee. What I find really interesting about Yuki is that she's more of a tragic villain than some of the other females on this list. You kind of empathize for her. Overall, I recommend this movie. If anyone hasn't watched these two films, they should give it a shot. Next on the list, we have 2011's The Devil's Rock. So this film follows two Kiwi commandos as they infiltrate a Nazi facility, and what they uncover is far much worse. They find mutilated and desiccated bodies scattered throughout the facility. They end up discovering a woman who's been held captive, but soon may realize that she's not who she appears to be. I personally enjoyed this movie way more than I was expecting. I was expecting a low-budget B-rated horror movie, but hey, I still like low-budget B-rated horror movies. But that's what I was expecting with this one. But this one was so flawlessly done. It's just such a great story. The way it's told is perfect. I do like that it's set in one single location and it has just a very simple yet effective story. That's one of my favorite things about the movie. More than that, I love the succubus in this movie just because she does have more of a demonic look to her, or design to her. And not only that, you see her being cunning and trying to mislead or manipulate these men. And for the most part, she does succeed in some regards, especially when she does kill the Nazi soldier. I think the way she kills him and she elongates her mouth and just chews off his head, or sucks off his head, whatever she does when she murders him, that is just brutal. I think that's a great scene. This is a really great movie. I wasn't expecting to like it just because it meshes horror aspects with war stories. So I was not expecting to like those combinations. I'm not really a big fan of war-related horror films, but this one was actually really well done. I was very surprised with this one. What's interesting about the succubus is that she cannot cross waters. She cannot go anywhere else. She is confined to this area. So yeah, I definitely recommend The Devil's Rock. I think you should give it a shot because this is actually really underrated in my opinion. Next on the list, we have 1988's The Unholy. So this film follows Father Michael, who acquires St. Agnes, and strange and inexplicable happenings start to occur. Father Michael ends up investigating and trying to uncover what happened to Father Collins and Father Dennis prior. So the succubus appears as this beautiful red-headed woman who basically serves as the main antagonist, though you see her very infrequently. One of the interesting things about the succubus is that she does possess what most people think when they think of a succubus, which is she lures men and seduces them or tempts them in their sleep. She does quite a bit of that, especially when Father Michael is having a dream sequence. He sees that he has snakes for trousers. I don't know why I find that so hilarious, but the succubus reappears later on in the film towards the last 20-25 minutes or so of the film, and she does the same thing where she tries to tempt or seduce Father Michael. But Father Michael is not a simp, and he does not take well to her advances, just throws her right off, which I find so funny. He was just like, get the fuck off me. Crazy bitch. That enrages her, and then too many demons come forth, and then there's this demon-like dog that comes and appears. One of my favorite things about the movie was the practical effects. I think the beginning when Father Dennis gets his throat ripped out, and then later on in the film with Claude when he starts vomiting all this blood. But more than that, the movie has so many red herrings and a whodunit type of situation, and you're trying to figure out what side everyone's on and if someone's good or bad or where they lie within this film. So I think one of my biggest gripes with the film would be the pacing of it. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad film. I just felt like some things could have been wrapped up a little bit more. I feel like there are points where I was really invested with the story and really wanting to find out what is happening. But at the same time, there are certain moments within the film that I just kind of get a little bored with it. But overall, this is a really good film, so I would recommend it. All right, we are down to the last film on this list. Can you guess what that is? It's Jennifer's Body, which came out in 2009. I personally enjoyed this movie when it first came out, when I saw it in theaters back when I was in high school, and I still enjoy this movie now. I actually just watched this movie last night, and I think it does still hold up. So the film follows Jennifer and her friend Needy when they go see this band perform when the venue sets alight. Jennifer goes with the band, and they end up sacrificing her to Satan, believing she is a virgin. But Jennifer was in fact not a virgin, and so she becomes a succubus. Now, I personally enjoy this movie. I think it's become quite a staple. It has quite a cult following. I think the deaths are pretty cool and pretty brutal just to watch. I think Jennifer as a succubus is really fascinating, just because you mix those elements of a horror teen comedy with a succubus thrown in the mix. I think that's a really great story. I think it's a great story from like an adolescent perspective and just seeing how everything unfolds. Now, Jennifer as a succubus, I think she's really awesome, and she is just a force to be reckoned with. She will kill anyone in her path. Well, when she needs to feed, that is. That's what's interesting about this film, is that you see Jennifer at her highest or her peak when she's glowing and beautiful because she has just fed. And you see her at her worst when she's dull and drained and she needs to feed, and she becomes irritable and just angry. But then you see the total opposite with Needy, who's just her best friend, but she's this very grounded, very reserved, kind of nerdy girl, if you'd want to call her that. I think she's really cool though. I like Needy, especially when she does acquire Jennifer's abilities at the end. That is really cool. And I get really satisfied at the end when she does go after that band, because yeah, they don't deserve what they got, basically, which is what they wanted. Rich and fame and all this fortune. They didn't deserve that. I think there's so many more things I could get into within the film. For example, the marketing, the internalized misogyny with Megan Fox and everything revolving Jennifer's body. But I am not going to get into that, and how much I enjoyed a badass femme fatale being featured in this film. It's so crazy when I looked this up, and it has like IMDb, which has Jennifer's body. Let me look it up real quick. I mean, I take ratings very lightly. Sometimes, I do look at the score and just seeing how many people are actually rating these movies. But overall, it has a 5.4 out of 10, which is kind of weird because I would actually rank Jennifer's Body higher than that. I would actually probably give it a 6 or 6.5. I think it's a well-done movie. And personally, I would say that Jennifer's Body is one of my favorite interpretations of a succubus, so we don't really quite get that. There's been so many lists that I've gone through with films that feature a succubus, and let me tell you, they were not that great. Not that great at all. So just a few honorable mentions. I'm going to have Succubus, which came out in 1989 with 2 Ks. And then I have Succubus again, which came out in 1968. And then I have Death by Temptation, which came out in 1990. Those are the 3 other succubus-related horror films that I would recommend. I know one of my friends recommended But Deliver Us from Evil, but it just did not look like a good film or like it didn't hold up. Let me know if there are any other succubus-related horror films, because I did try to look. I found White Skin, but let me know if that one's really related or not. And if there are any others, if you agree with this list, what you guys think, what I should do next. But yeah, have a great day, guys.